Hello everybody and welcome to today's Chrissy B Show. Now we recently did a whole program about obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD and saw how it can really affect someone's life and what can be done about it as well. And today we're going to learn more about a condition that's considered to be a symptom of OCD, which affects about 2 to 5% of the population. That's around 1.2 million people in the UK alone, and that is hoarding. Now, according to the NHS Choices website, a hoarding disorder is where someone acquires an excessive number of items and stores them in a chaotic manner. The items can be of little or no monetary value and usually result in unmanageable amounts of clutter. It's considered to be a significant problem if the amount of clutter interferes with everyday living. For example, the person is unable to use their kitchen or bathroom and cannot access rooms. The clutter is causing significant distress or negatively affecting the person's quality of life or their families. For example, they become upset if someone tries to clear the clutter and their relationships with others suffer. So on tonight's show, we'll be finding out why people hoard. Is it due to something in the person's past? Is it something that an individual can control? And how can somebody overcome this obsession if they have it? We have Everett Clark joining us all the way from Alexandria, Virginia in America, whose mother is a hoarder and finds organising or throwing out anything made of paper really difficult to do. Now, Everett will talk about what his life was like growing up in a hoarder house and how it's affected him. Next, we'll be speaking to founder of Clouds NCIC, Heather Matuazo, a social enterprise who helps anyone in need of tackling hoarding situations that are creating problems in their lives. Plus, we have with us our resident psychologist, Dr. Audrey Tang, to educate us more on this condition. We'll also be taking a look at a video of when we got a professional declutterer to help out a member of the public to get his house in order. So his situation wasn't serious, it was just some clutter that he needed to get rid of. And last but certainly not least, I'll be giving you my 5 ways to declutter your mind. But first, it's the news with Helena Shard. Hello, Helena.
Hello, Chrissy. So, it's been one of these subjects.
Interesting one.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Exhausting, actually. It was really exhausting. I was
What's
reading
the research for it?
No, not just to the research, but to getting the mind. I was imagining being a hoarder because it's quite a hidden thing. It's a hidden illness, and some people can still function, and outsiders won't know until it gets really serious. But no, very sad. So I was reading a link on the Open University website by Caroline Pierce, and apparently hoarding disorder was only recognised as a mental disorder in May 2013.
Is that all?
Yeah, can you believe it?
Wow.
That's not long ago at all.
No.
So it's in the 5th edition of the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders.
I'm really surprised at that because there have been programmes on hoarding for
There have
quite a long time.
Yeah, since before. I know, that's why it's strange. So interesting to read. I think the interesting thing for me was finding that hoarders, they are identified as attaching value to objects other people might consider as being rubbish. Yeah. But the value a hoarder invests in an object might not necessarily be in the object's utility. It's what it's become and how it's represented to the owner. Do you know what I mean? It's a strange thing. And quite interesting, it's something that she said, is hoarding behaviour is illustrative of the varying degrees people use and invest in objects and possessions. Learning about the lives of hoarders might cause us all to reflect on how we relate to and value objects. It's quite an interesting statement. I was looking at celebrities that may have it, and it was quite a tricky one because I think there's lots of people that think they've got it, but they haven't really, because it has to be an excessive disorder. I know Lisa Kudrow was known that she said she's publicly acknowledged her hoarding problem. She keeps documents, faxes and day planners like from the 80s.
Oh.
Which is, but it's, you've got to, it's you know, fine line between what's a collectible hobby
that's
and
the
a
thing.
hoarder. And there are lots of women, I mean Lindsay Lohan being one, that say that their shoe collection is far beyond a collection. It's definitely a hoarding thing, but I do wonder because, you know, it's got to be really out of control. So again, Wikipedia also talks about hoarding disorder, and it's obviously more common in people with psychological disorders such as depression and anxiety. And last week we were talking about how anxious young people and teenagers are with social media, and they're carrying on again in The Guardian. There's an article, "Feeling anxious, it's good to cry," says mental health charity Mind. And anxiety has now become level with depression as one of the most common reasons to call Mind's info line.
Okay.
So that's really quite high now. So in 2014-15 alone, there were 6,087 calls about anxiety and panic attacks, which accounted for nearly 1 in 6 of all calls. So I mean, if you think about, you know, triggering hoarding and things like that. And again, another article in The Independent, students struggling at university, and the Samaritans charity survey found the majority of 16 to 24-year-olds feared to admit that they're struggling with aspects of their life. And it's a recent survey that's been brought out that we're a really bottled up culture with our emotions, and they're really urging students to get in touch this academic year.
This is why it's so important to cover these kind of topics, because
Really
the whole point of
is.
the show is, you know, we do want to get people talking, but not just talking about stuff, but actually finding solutions for
Yeah,
problems as well.
absolutely.
Because you do feel like you kind of, when you go through something like that, you do kind of feel like a bit of a failure when it's not true. It's just things that are happening in your life and you can't sort of deal with it on your own. Doesn't mean that you're a failure, but you can't help but feel that way when you're going through it. It's like, why can't I just be normal? Why can't I just be like everyone else and that doesn't have these kind of problems? But there's so many people that are going through it and they suffer in silence, and there's no need to.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't mention is that Mind, the charity, have launched a free guide for people of all ages on how to cope with stress and anxiety, because it's such a common problem.
Yeah.
So that's always a good thing. Channel 4, The Hoarder Next Door. I don't know if anyone ever saw that, but that was an amazing programme. I think it was one of the first ones that I'd seen. And it's with psychotherapist Stelios Kiosis.
Oh, I've seen something. Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
And he visits homes of hoarders and explores how they've become hoarders,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. So he has his team, he's a counselling team, and clutter clearers. A bit of a funny word to use, clutter clearers, isn't it? It's a bit rude in a way, but I understand why they use that. And so Stelios argues that it's often from a form of loss, such as a bereavement or divorce, which just triggers that escalation of hoarding in someone. And interesting as well, I think there was actually something on last night, how obsessive cleaning disorder is completely the other spectrum, isn't it, to hoarding. Just a funny thing. There's a brilliant YouTube site as well, hoardnomore.org. And it's a group of life coaches who train in CBT by people like Tony Robbins, and it's about reclaiming your life. It's a really interesting site to see, and there's a couple of things in there that I've found quite interesting. One of them being, it's a common mistake to think that hoarding is a poor man's issue, that it's not. You can hoard absolutely anything, whether it be, really expensive, which was
I'm
quite
nodding because
interesting.
I know someone personally
you?
that she had a lot of money and she was still hoarding.
Gosh.
So it doesn't
Yeah,
matter
it
who the
doesn't
person is,
equate.
what class. It doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
can happen to anyone.
And also, just
Helen-
one thing,
oh,
hoarding,
yep.
it's quite a chronic disorder, and it will get worse if you don't seek help,
Oh, there you go.
which is quite
Which is why we're doing this program, to get help for people. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Helena.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next time. All right, guys. Now, before we go to a quick break, let's take a look at some more extreme hoarding cases.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Avery. I specialise in clearing hoarded houses. This is one of the most extreme cases I've ever seen. So today I've invited you into this house to see what a hoarded house looks like from the inside. This is one of the extreme cases. This is hoarding at its highest form. OCD is one term for it, and the occupant become quite ill and was hanging on to all these things, and they've now had to leave, and we've been instructed by legal professionals to empty the property. This is the first of the rooms to be cleared. this room is actually cleared. It may look like it's still hoarded, but it's actually cleared and organised. These items are to be kept and returned to our client. Everything here is of value and it's been listed, so we're on to the next room. So the rubbish that we've cleared from the first room and the hallway and from this room is what you see in the front garden. That big pile of rubbish is just from these 2 or 3 rooms. You can imagine the amount that's going to come out of this house, because this is just the beginning. The rest of the house is completely hoarded, as you're soon going to see.
Well, up next we'll be meeting Everett Clark, who'll be talking about his experiences growing up with his mum, who's a hoarder, her struggles with hoarding and how it's affected him. Plus, I'll be giving my own top 5 ways to declutter your mind a bit later on. So don't go away. Hi, I'm Chrissy B and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit chrissybshow.tv for more information and subscribe to our YouTube channel Chrissy B Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chrissy B Show and on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show. If you've just joined us, today is all about raising awareness of hoarding disorder. And before we meet our first guest, let's watch this.
My name is Everett Clark and I'm a photographer from Alexandria, Virginia. I'm looking for people who live in cluttered or messy environments and would allow me to take anonymous, respectful pictures in their living spaces. I want to show what it's like to live in a cluttered environment. I know what it's like because I was raised in that environment. Several members of my family suffer from hoarding disorder. I ate, slept, did my homework, played with my action figures on mountains of magazines, broken toys, and discarded clothes. I felt ashamed and isolated at times, but this environment shaped the way I view the world. When I took up photography, I made pictures of landscapes that contain piles of trash, abandoned homes, and other structures that have outlasted their original purposes. In all these cases, I've tried to show the special beauty that I find in old things. I'd like to do the same for the landscapes of hoarding. I want to capture what it's like to live surrounded by stuff that might seem like trash to an outsider, but has a special meaning to the people who live with it every day. To me, the inside of a cluttered home is kind of like a personal landscape, made of the stuff that one person cherishes or is afraid to lose. I use a large format film camera. It's the kind of camera that photographers have used for more than a century to capture their subjects with the greatest possible fidelity. I use this old-timey camera mainly because it slows me down and forces me to think about everything that goes into the final picture.
And now let's please welcome all the way from Alexandria, Virginia in America, Everett Clark via Skype. Hello, Everett.
Hello, nice
How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Good to have you here. Now, we also have joining us our psychologist for today, Audrey Tang. How are you, Audrey?
I'm good, thank you. Hi, Everett. Nice to meet you.
So we're just going to be giving us some input as well. So, Everett, that was quite an interesting video that we saw there, and a very interesting line of work that you've decided to take up. Can you tell us where the idea came from?
Well, sure. I was, as I mentioned in the video, I was a landscape photographer primarily for many years, but the pictures I made, I always seemed to gravitate towards, things that people had left behind, sometimes just piles of junk. And I never really understood until pretty recently that it had a lot to do with, the environment I was raised in.
because my mom suffered from hoarding disorder. And yeah, it's one of those things that seems kind of obvious in retrospect, but it just kind of hit me a couple of years ago that, hey, I should, directly deal with this thing that was a major part of my life that has been kind of creeping around the edges of my work, but I hadn't dealt with, directly.
Yeah, I mean, you did mention in the video that it was something that you were quite ashamed of growing up. And how did you kind of cope with it as, while you were living at home?
Well, when I was very young, I wasn't, I'd say it wasn't until middle school that I started to feel shame about it. When I was very young, it was just kind of the way the world was,
Okay.
As mentioned, played with action figures, and it's just instead of playing in a, castle or something, there'd just be piles of old magazines and toys and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just, I just kind of accepted it. But then when I got to be in middle school, and especially when I hit puberty, and I realized that, hey, I couldn't have friends over anymore the way I normally would. And, that was when I started to feel, I guess, different. And that, that led to a sense of shame. Okay. It was hard in high school to deal with because I didn't know at that point there was no Hoarders TV show. For all I knew, that my family was the only one that lived that way. So it was quite isolating. I had a couple of close friends who knew about it. And it was definitely through the support of friends who, helped me understand that it wasn't something that was my fault. It wasn't something that that I was responsible for. It definitely through the support of friends was how I managed to cope.
And just to ask Audrey here now, because obviously, if you're not the actual hoarder, but you're living in the same house, that also has effects on your life.
Exactly, as Everett's saying, it becomes very difficult to bring people over to your house because there's something strange about it, something different, whereas it's very difficult to explain it to your parents or to get them to see what's happening because to the hoarder, it is a normal way of life.
Yeah.
And that can be quite difficult. And the whole problem with hoarding seems to be that it can be in replacement. You're replacing the person, the relationship with the object. But unfortunately, by doing that too much, it pushes the person further and further away. So,
Right.
I mean, what I'd like to know, Everett, is did your parents stop hoarding at all, or do they still hoard?
Yeah, my mom still hoards. My dad passed away about 12 years ago at this point. And it was, after when he died, it got kind of exponentially worse. It really accelerated to like a 4 on that, 5-point hoarding and cluttering scale.
Yeah.
And then actually what happened was a bunch of my friends and I, we had this thing, we call it the plan, where basically we did a forced clean out. I didn't know that was what it was called back then.
Oops.
But we, had my mom leave town on a pretext, and then over the course of a weekend, we filled up 2 giant dumpsters and a dump truck, and it was a hugely traumatic event for her, and our relationship took a long time to recover. It's still something that is a point of stress between us.
So you were thinking you were doing something really great, because obviously it was all with good intentions and everything, but she found it really difficult to deal with because it's like her stuff went. Yeah.
It was really tough for her. I would say for me, it was actually a hugely cathartic event. And I know it's something that was extremely painful to her, but that was the first time that I really understood that, it was something that I could move out from in my own life, that that was not my fate to end up, the way my mom did. So it's one of those things that's just, it was horribly painful for her, but I couldn't say that I regret doing it. Yeah. Although at this point, if I were doing it again, I would probably seek a more managed solution because, she still has the problem. She still hoards today.
Okay. Now, what I found quite interesting, Audrey, as well, about Everett here is what you're doing now. It's like you've kind of, like I said, you found something positive to do from that situation that you did go through, because it's like, you love the old things, you look at the sort of history behind things and what they mean. So that's a really interesting way to look at things.
Thanks. I guess the way I think about it is I'm trying to get in touch with kind of my childhood experience of growing up. As I mentioned, when I was very young, I wasn't a source of shame, really. It was just the way things were. And so most of, my early emotional connections and strong feelings happened in that context. And I hope that by, looking at the interiors of the homes of people with hoarding disorder kind of through the lens of my childhood experience, I can provide people with, not a sensationalized picture, but just pretty direct picture of what it's like to, just experience the visual experience, the emotional experience of being in that environment.
Audrey, what do you think of that? It's quite...
I think it's a very positive thing to be doing, and it sounds quite therapeutic for yourself as well, Everett. And I was wondering, do you show the pictures that you've taken of the homes to the people who are hoarding, and what is their response to them?
Well, at this stage in the project, the first year I was working on it, it was extremely hard to find people who would actually participate. And it wasn't until I made that video you saw on YouTube, and then also in particular I started advertising in senior newspapers, that I actually started to get people contacting me who are willing to open up their homes to me. And it's really only in the last couple months that I've been printing some of the images I made. As I mentioned, I use a film camera, kind of an old school large format film camera. Like the first body of work that I'm producing from it, which should be ready to show next month. Wow. I am going to show it to the person I've been working with. She's somebody, I'm tremendously grateful to her. I guess she was the first person to open her home to me. She's kind of a difficult person to get along with sometimes. So, but I'll be in touch with her, and I will show her the pictures, and I'm interested to see how she responds. I don't quite know. She something she said to me actually. This one was that only a hoarder can help a hoarder. And she had this sense that she wanted to, by participating in my project, kind of help other people who suffered from
that's nice. Yeah, that's really good.
Which is, it's a tremendously noble goal. And the sad irony, of course, is that, she wasn't really able to help herself. And she's kind of pushed away a lot of the people who might have been able to give her support. Yeah, so I will be showing pictures to her probably in the next month.
Okay. Everett, I'm really interested to know how that goes, Everett. Thank you so much for speaking to us, and all the best with your great photography. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So Audrey, how do you think that will go then, actually? Because it's quite an interesting thing to do, but to actually show hoarders maybe photographs of... Yeah. Do you think that would help them in any way?
What I think is helping the lady he's been photographing is actually his relationship with her. Okay. Because... hoarding can happen in lots of different ways. It can start by lots of different things. It can be just because you've never learned to organise yourself. It's just a simple skill. It can be because you've always gone without. So suddenly when you have money, you want to collect everything and stockpile it. But most commonly, it tends to be, as Everett was saying, after a bereavement, after a trauma, sometimes even for a parent after their child leaves home, or you begin to associate with an object or a set of objects rather than the person. And that can become very isolating for you. And a lot of the time, the best help is actually something like family therapy to rebuild those relationships that have been broken. But if this lady has been pushing other people away, actually by allowing Everett into her home, speaking with him, allowing him to photograph what is actually very intimate, I think that will probably help her quite a lot and maybe bring her out into the world, just give her a different sense of perspective. So I think that will help. I'm interested to see how.
Do stay with us.
Yes.
We do have another great guest after this quick break. So, but just before that, if you do have a story to share that, we'd like to get talking about mental health issues here on this show. So if you have a story to share, do get in touch via our website, chrissybshow.tv. And also you can tweet us at Chrissy B Show and comment on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Now after the break, we're going to have another guest, this from an organisation called Clouds NCIC, and that's founder Heather Matuozo. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. And she's going to be telling us about what she does, and she's got a very interesting video to show us as well. Plus later on, I'll be giving my own tips on 5 ways to declutter your mind. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Chrissy B, and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit chrissybshow.tv for more information and subscribe to our YouTube channel Chrissy B Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chrissy B Show and on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. welcome back to today's show, where we are learning all about the condition of hoarding. And just before the break, we met Everett Clark, whose family members have a hoarding disorder, and he shared with us what it was like for him growing up in that environment and how it affected him as well. And before we meet our next guest, let's take a look at what it's like living with a hoarding problem.
Hi, I'm Heather.
Yeah.
You Abby?
Yeah.
Can I come in?
Yeah.
If you go back, then I'll follow you, shall I?
Yeah.
I'll be really careful. Right. Okay then. So, tell me a little bit about sort of how long you've lived here.
I was so pleased. First space I've ever had of my own.
Right. And how long ago was that?
Maybe I've been here at least 10 years.
10 years.
Maybe.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
Oh dear.
Then everything started to fall
Yeah.
apart. And
Anything that you think's good enough for charity shop or anything like
what are you
that?
putting there?
No, it's just a piece of paper. Look, just
Oh yeah, rubbish.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's
What's
rubbish.
in the bottom?
There's a bottle.
Oh God, this is really hard. Why is it so difficult?
I think I can help her. I've got to have a go, and I've got to try and do something for her. All that you can hold, you can keep, but once you've got past that, you can't have any more. What's this? Have another look back through those and just say, do I really need them? We have now got through to carpet, which I don't know the last time it saw a bit of air.
It felt like I was reclaiming my flat very slowly. I can't give away the great escape, sorry. Just feeling hope, which I haven't felt for a very long time.
You just know that somebody's going to get where they want to go because she hasn't made any excuses. She'll get there.
I guess I'd like my home to be welcoming and be able to invite people round to eat and friends.
And we're joined by the founder of Cloudzen CIC, Heather Matuoso, via Skype. Hello, Heather.
Hi.
Thanks so much for that video. It was really interesting to watch, and so good that we see.
Thanks, Abby, as well.
Oh, I'm glad to see that Abby's getting help with that. Now, tell us about the organisation. How did it all come about?
It all started with me being a professional organiser initially. And I did that for a couple of years. And then one day was asked by a charity, Action for Children, if I could help a lady whose children had actually been taken away from the family home because the home was unfit for them to stay there any longer.
Wow.
And they said, can you help? And I said, I don't know, I'd really like to try. And so they went away and looked for some funding, and I went away and read even more books, but this time it was books about hoarding, which all of them came from the US, so I'm very grateful to them. Okay. And I started working with this lady and learned a huge amount from her as well. And whilst working with her, started to realise there was a huge need that was not filled. And when I started asking councils and housing associations and people who were social landlords, if they had similar problems, the answer was yes. And then if I asked what they did, they said, well, the only thing we ever really do is throw everything away and start again.
Oh,
and I
wow.
said, which is brutal, but that was all they sort of had at their disposal, if you like. And so I decided to start Cloudzen to attempt to fill that gap, and still am doing that.
Okay.
So,
How's it going, Heather?
it's going really well. I started Cloudzen, well, I founded Cloudzen in 2009, and it's still there and carrying on. And I do lots of one-to-one work, which is my favourite. But I also do a lot of staff training, which allows me to sort of pass the message on, which is what I really want to do, is raise awareness around the condition, because I think that's the most important thing. If you understand or try to understand what's happening to somebody, then I think you have a much better chance of being able to help them.
Mm-hmm. Now, Heather, we also have our resident psychologist here, Dr. Audrey Tang.
Hi, Heather.
So Audrey, obviously a great initiative, because there people really do need help in this country as well. What do you think of what Heather's doing?
Well, Heather's the right sort of person to be doing it, because she takes the trouble to understand the situation, and you're absolutely right in saying if you learn a little bit more about the person and why they form those attachments, that's the only way you can actually find that breakthrough to help someone.
Yeah.
I mean, Heather, have you noticed that people have a turning point when they actually begin to accept help? Do you notice that?
I think there are maybe two turning points. I think the first one is if people actually ask for help themselves.
Yeah.
And to me, that's already half the battle.
Yeah.
But then the next turning point is when people stop talking about their belongings and start talking about the other things in their life.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they say, oh, I was thinking about I might go on holiday, or I might do a course, or things like that. Their body language alters. They sort of more open-bodied and more upright, and that's my favourite kind of. That's what I love.
That's lovely. Now, Heather, I was reading up before about you, and it says that you think it's important to make it fun as well. How do you actually do that?
I don't know. I certainly don't go in going, come on, it's going to be fun, we're going to make it fun. But most people have a really good sense of humour, luckily.
Yeah.
So I'm hunting for that, first of all. And I think if you can establish some common bonds or anything, really, anything that you can then have a laugh about. So that's what I was doing with Abby when I said, you know, all you can hold, you can keep, and all things like that. None of those are rules, or none of those are real.
Yeah.
They're just, she understood that that's how we worked, and that's how we sort of got on with each other, and that's what I do. That's brilliant.
You must love your job.
I do love it. I think I'm one of those lucky people that's found something that they just, I don't even think about. People talk about retiring, and I think, you know, I don't think I'd like to retire. Not yet, anyway.
Oh, it's lovely because you're helping people and you're doing something that, you know, really gives you that kind of satisfaction as well. I think it's brilliant.
And it just make me happy. So, you know, it's a two-way street, really.
Yeah. Just a final question, Heather, regarding sort of family members and how they can help. From what you've seen and what you've experienced, what's the best thing family members can do?
I think family members sort of need training themselves. That sounds awful, but in the sense that they need to understand that it isn't a personal thing against them.
Okay.
They're also fighting with their fears because they're worried that their loved one is in trouble, and they also maybe fear that it might happen to them, and they don't know what the future holds. And I think if they can just listen to what their loved one's saying to them, and even if it seems utterly ridiculous, if they just say, please just sit with me while I go through these things, because you being there will make me do it, then so be it. And stop the itchy fingers and don't roll your sleeves up. And it's hard, it's really hard.
I can imagine.
But I think that's how you do it.
All right, Heather, it's been absolutely lovely speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's
Thank
a pleasure.
you.
It was mine too. Thank you.
So Audrey, but just staying on the point of family members, you were mentioning something quite interesting to me before about how sometimes families can even kind of be separated because they haven't been around for a while and stuff like that.
And then that can be where the attachment to objects manifests or gets stronger because the family's no longer around, and so that's the closest thing that person has to remember them or to think about them. One thing that Heather said that was very important is she works to empower people, and the problem with family members is there is that feeling of, oh great, they've gone for help, we're all going to clear everything out, and in this weekend we're going to chuck everything out today, and that's not actually going to help them, because if a relationship's broken down, it needs time to rebuild. If someone is coming to terms with really getting rid of 10, 12, 20 years of possessions, it can't be done in a weekend. I mean, I understand how frustrating it will have been for Everett, and that's why he sent his mum away, and then they cleared the house. And rightly, when in his reflection, he was saying that she does have trouble trusting him now because obviously he cleared the house when she wasn't there. But there's two ways of dealing with, it's similar to phobias. I remember you've had a program on that before. There's two ways of dealing with it. There's systematic desensitization and there's flooding. Flooding is where you throw somebody in with their feared object and see what happens. And it's the same sort of thing. If you flood somebody, they never learn why they were hoarding in the first place. They never learn how to rebuild a relationship. They never learn how to keep themselves more organised, keep their mind more organised, keep their emotions organised. However, if you do it systematically, and systematically it can take a lot of time, so you need to be very, very patient as family members, it will empower the person to be able to deal with whatever it was that caused it in the first place.
Because if they don't, the thing is, if you can get someone they'll do it again because they haven't dealt with the root of the issue.
Exactly.
Clear it all out for them, they're just going to repeat the behaviour.
And there's more space in which to do it.
Definitely.
So that's the problem. It's a very tricky one for friends and family, purely because I can see it from the friends and family's point of view. What you're worried about is if somebody's living in that much, with that many things, you worry that it's going to fall on them, that they're going to be suffocated, that they might trip over, they might break something, and you just want to clear it out for them and you want to look after them, and you're worried about whether they're neglecting their own health, if they can't reach the bathroom or they can't get to the kitchen.
So you've just got to really be patient and just give them the support there. Dr. Audrey, thank you so much for joining us again, and we'll see you again very soon. Thank you. All right, guys, so don't go away because we'll be right back to watch a video where we've got a professional declutterer to help out a member of the public to get his house in order. Now, he didn't have a hoarding problem, but this was just, a bit unorganized, so we can all learn from that, even if we're not going through any kind of issue that we were speaking about earlier. Plus, I'm going to be giving my top 5 ways to declutter your mind. See you in a bit, only here on The Chrissy B Show. Hi, I'm Chrissy B, and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit chrissybshow.tv for more information and subscribe to our YouTube channel Chrissy B Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chrissy B Show and on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Welcome back to Hoarding Disorder Awareness Day here on The Chrissy B Show. Now, you might not have a hoarding issue, but maybe you have lots of clutter in your life, and this can cause unnecessary stress. Let's take a look at the time where we got a professional declutterer to help out a member of the public to get his house in order.
Jane, our declutterer, is off to save someone from their clutter.
Hi Tim.
Hiya.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm
You
Jane. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Here's how
Come
you
in.
declutter your living room.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we begin decluttering your living room, it can be helpful just to chat a little about clutter and how it affects us, and it'll help you then to get the most that you can from this session. Because what I'd really love is for you to go away at the end and this be a bit of a catalyst for you to then clear other areas in your life. When you think of the word clutter, what does it conjure up for you?
Things that get in the way, I would usually say.
Yeah, things that get in the way, it sums up pretty well. And it can be stuff like in our physical environment, but clutter we can also hold in our bodies. So we're going to be targeting the stuff today, but it will have an impact on all these other areas of your life.
I can totally relate to this, completely understand.
You talk me through the different areas in your living room and what draws your attention as we focus in on your clutter.
Yeah, well, some of this is actually my flatmates, so a lot of this stuff is actually my flatmates, and I think that's one of the problems.
Yeah, all right.
Shared environment.
What is this?
This is a bar.
Right.
Really? Is it?
It's an old computer that nobody uses.
We can see that.
It's DVDs.
Okay.
Someone likes to stay in and watch TV.
Yeah.
A lot.
That's it, and other old batteries and things that I've thrown in there.
Ah, little rubber duckies. Quack, quack.
Originally bookshelves that have become shelves for all kinds of rubbish.
So first, if we get rid of everything that is just rubbish, so like old newspapers,
Sort them out.
Put a pile for your girlfriend and a pile for your flatmate. And then they can decide if they want to keep them or make space on the bookshelf. Or you managed to?
Yeah. One, to be honest.
One bin?
So, yeah.
And that's your one to get rid of or keep?
Yes, one to keep, but actually
And there's
use.
some magazines under
All
here.
the sexiest 50 ladies or whatever.
That's all the ones that are yours?
Yeah,
That might be a
Shield
good
ones,
start.
they're mine.
To actually store the glasses.
Yeah, that's why
until...
they'd be better off
Yeah?
stored in the kitchen.
Yes, I think those glasses
do it,
might be
you can
better
see
off
if
out of that
there's
overflowing
anything
chest of
structural.
books, Tim.
So we're finished. Everything's clean and tidy.
Yeah, looks great.
How do you feel? looking around?
Yeah, I feel a lot more relaxed looking around, knowing that it's clean and it feels like somewhere you can actually sit down and, you know, chill out and be comfortable, as opposed to continuing on, say, a stressful day at work. You look around, you're like, oh God, the place is a mess, it's not really somewhere I can relax. Well, now it feels like it is.
So we've got some things here that
Yeah.
weren't yours
Yeah.
to throw away.
One happy, decluttered Tim.
Next step then.
Oh, apart from the
I
flatmate's
think
mess.
just when my flatmate comes in and realises how clean and tidy everything is, then they're going to probably go, well, yeah, probably I need to do the same.
Right.
And I think just seeing that is going to make them go, wow.
So there were some lessons there for all of us. Now I'm going to be speaking about how to actually declutter your mind. So if your mind is very cluttered, there's lots in there, you will get very, very stressed. You will feel a bit down and you won't really be able to concentrate on any one thing and do anything well. So I've put a few of my own tips together for that. So the first one is to cut down on commitments. Now, if you're all over the place, rushing around and you're all stressed, it might be because you have way too many commitments on your plate. So what I would suggest is to make a list of all of the things that you have to do, including things to do at home and at work, maybe at your place of study, commitments that you have with family, and see which ones are actually really useful to you. And keep those ones, but see also the ones that don't really add anything to your life and it doesn't really make any difference to your well-being or your happiness. So if it's a case where there are things that are quite unnecessary or people that you kind of hang around with that aren't really adding to your life, you could consider cutting back or getting rid of certain things in your life so that you don't have so many commitments, because no one can really have too much to do like that, because it does kind of bog you down. The second one is use lists. Now, why should you actually try and remember everything in your head? I actually used to watch my mum make lists for shopping, things that she had to do, and I picked the habit up from her actually. And I keep my own to-do list, my checklists, and it really helps me to organize myself. It helps me to get my mind more organized and to focus on what's important. So you could try making your own lists. I actually have a diary, and I have a data page diary where I write down everything that I need to do, including things for work, things for my home, and I just tick things off as I go along. So it is really, really helpful if you adopt that habit. If you don't like writing, you just keep it on your smartphone, it's just as good. The third point is, don't take in too much. Now, if you overload on information, your brain will feel really, really clogged up. So try to limit the time you sit in front of a TV, for example, or on social media sites, blogs and things like that. Spend more time outdoors and taking in the fresh air. I don't know about you, but if I'm maybe on my computer too much, or if I find myself kind of checking too much on my phone, and it kind of starts to give me a headache after a while, and I can't focus. It's like I don't want any noise. And sometimes we're overloading ourselves with technology and things like that, and we don't even realize the detrimental effects it's having on us. So try to take regular breaks. As I said, try to spend some more time outdoors, breathe in the air, get some sunlight if you can, and try to kind of have a balance with things as well. My fourth point is, deal with things. So if there's lots of things swimming around in your mind, maybe like decisions that you need to make, Start tackling each one by one. Don't just, let them sit there in your head. You're going to feel so much better when you actually face things. So I know how difficult it can be to make certain decisions in your life, but if you don't do anything about them, sometimes things tend to get worse, and it just ends up bringing more stress to your mind. So even the fact that you're actually deciding to do something and taking a positive action, that's already going to be a big load off your mind. So deal with things, don't put them off. And my fifth point is offload. So if you do have a lot of things in your mind, problems that you're going through, things that it might not even be a problem, but things that you're not coping well with, do ask for advice. That could be from a friend, it could be from a mentor, it could be from a counselor. Just make sure that you don't keep it all in your head, because sometimes when things just remain in our brains, it's like it all feels like it's very jumbled up. But as soon as we kind of speak it out, it really helps, and we even start to see things that we can do towards those issues as well. So speak to someone, especially if it's someone more experienced than you in a particular area that you're going through, and they'll be able to give you some insight as well. So that's all. Decluttering your life is so important for your mental well-being, and it will lead you to a happier and healthier life, which is our motto here on the show. Now back to what we were talking about earlier. If you don't suffer from hoarding yourself, but you know someone who does, do make sure you let them know of this episode, which if they don't have Sky, they can watch it on our YouTube channel, chrissybshow.tv. YouTube channel, Chrissy B Show. They can also subscribe and watch all of our previous shows in their own time. Well, sadly, that's all we have time for on today's program. But if there's a topic that you'd like to see us talking about on this program, please do get in touch via our website, chrissybshow.tv. You can also tweet us at Chrissy B Show, and you can also Facebook us, The Chrissy B Show. Until next time, bye-bye for now.